High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Mattingly. Tucker makes one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by tag team partner Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Good to see you again. Long time no see. Episode 82 recorded last night. Right back here for episode 83. So let's keep it rolling.
No warming up in the bullpen. We got a phenomenal guest joining us today on Tablesetters. Tim Dillard, a beloved figure in the baseball world whose personality is as electric as his insight, a former MLB pitcher with an 18-year professional career. Of course, Tim spent the bulk of his playing days in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, earning respect not just for the durability on the mound, but for his unmatched clubhouse presence and deep love of the game. And since he's hung up the cleats, he's seamlessly transitioned into the broadcast booth. Humor, storytelling, unique perspective as a former player has made him a fan favorite. Tim, thank you so much for joining Tablesetters. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. Hanging up the spikes. I still have my spikes. I just nobody wants me to put them on and use them. So yeah. So now I'm broadcasting.
So Tim, you've now been a part of the Brewers broadcast team. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's for 5 seasons now.
Yeah, this is my 5th season.
Okay. So as someone who spent nearly almost 2 decades playing professionally, how has your experience on the mound shaped the way you approach the storytelling and the analysis in the booth?
Wow. You weren't kidding around. This got deep really fast. The baseball is the hardest game on the earth. I feel like definitely the hardest team game. And you find that out when you're playing Little League, and then it gets harder and harder every year. Every year you go up, every year you get older. And it was hard for me. I made it to the big leagues, and it was hard for me to stay there, and you don't realize that only like 10% of big leaguers get 10 years in the show. Actually, it's less than 10%. And then you realize how many people have played baseball, and then you realize how small fraction had played Major League Baseball. And so once you kind of go through that lifestyle, like you said, been a long time, a couple decades. And I grew up in it too. My dad was a coach. And so I grew up in the clubhouse in the minor leagues, So now that I broadcast, everything goes through the filter of this game is hard. And these guys do it. Yeah, they make a ton of money at the big league level, but there's 90% of all baseball players professionally that are playing for almost nothing. And to get to the big leagues is hard enough, but to stay there is even harder. And so for me, if I'm broadcasting, I'm not going to be like, why didn't that guy make that play? I'm not going to be that dude. I wasn't that guy when I was on the mound. I wasn't that guy in the clubhouse or bullpen. I'm going to go like, you know what? There's a backstory here. We've seen him make that play before. He didn't make it this time or whatever. And I feel like my job is to just reiterate that this is the hardest game on earth. It's not just a job for these guys. It's a lifestyle. It's their families that are involved. It's everything they've ever done in their entire life has geared towards this moment of being in Major League Baseball. So, I remember in 2008, Dale Schwame took over for the Brewers in September. We were in Chicago. We're in the clubhouse. They had just fired Ned Yost, and nobody knew this was coming. And Dale Schwame walked in, who I love, and every time I see him, I give him a hug. But he goes, the first thing he said goes, I will never forget how hard this game is. And I remember that stuck with me because you want the people that are above you, your bosses, to know how hard this game is, right? Everybody wants to know if they're doing whatever their job is in life. You want your bosses to know how hard the game is so that, or hard your job is, so they know kind of what it looks like on a day-to-day basis for what you do. So that's the really long answer for, I like to have fun in the booth and just talk baseball.
Well, since transitioning from the dugout to the broadcast booth, was there anything that was unexpected as far as the challenges as you made that jump into put on the shirt and tie and having conversations about baseball in the booth?
Yeah, I don't wear a tie that much. I'm lucky in that way. I don't know. My biggest hang up retiring because, the Brewers were like, if you retire, we'll put you in broadcasting. And my wife was like, yeah, do that. You go from having a team, you have this team of people that you do life with for 7 months out of the year, from spring training. It's trainers, it's clubbies, it's players, it's coaches. And there's about 30 or 40 of you guys that, do life together. And then all of a sudden, I didn't know what kind of team I was going to have. And it took me a minute to realize, like, there's my broadcasting co-partners or whatever. You got the cameramen, you got the producers, you got the stage managers, you got the directors. And I didn't realize I was going to have another team. That was what was probably the uneasy part about transitioning, is like, am I going to have people to hang out with? What's this going to look like? And that was a pleasant surprise that I finally, I realized I do have another team that I get to work with. But when you're broadcasting, you always have somebody in your ear. You always have somebody going, hey, we're going to do this, or hey, here's a shot of this, or this is what we're going to do next, or could you please stop talking so we can go to commercial, stuff like that. And that's the biggest thing. You feel like you know about it, and you probably are aware of that happens, but I guess you don't really realize how much is going on behind the scenes to put on a production. I mean, you guys probably know. You just said I'm episode number 83, so you probably do stuff easier now than you did on the first few episodes, and
for sure,
probably don't know what kind of production it takes just to put something like this on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you alluded to it before, how knowing how hard this game is and having all that experience in playing it has affected you as a broadcaster. Are there any specific moments of your career that stand out that really you can think of right now that affect the calls of the game that you have?
Ooh. Well, I mean, I got to the big leagues. I remember thinking, oh, I'll be here forever. Like, it's almost like you feel like as a player, you get called up and they give you some sort of gold card that you're like, oh, I'll be here forever. I was quickly a month later back in AAA. I don't know. I can't really think of a particular instance because off the top of my head, because baseball, as a pitcher anyway, baseball is very stressful. So like, you're on the mound and you're trying to get somebody out, and that I don't really miss that part of it. I miss the competition, sure, but I don't really miss standing on the mound, being the guy in the spotlight in that moment. I love the bullpen and I love the dugout, and the travel was fun, and the clubhouse atmosphere and being a part of something great. But it's stressful being on the mound, and that's the part that probably scares me the most. So when I do call a game, I kind of feel like I know what these guys are going through, just because it's a lonely island on the mound when things are not going great. And if you think about this, just specific to pitchers, you want to be comfortable on the mound. You throw bullpens every time you have a powwow session with a pitching coach or the catchers, throwing a bullpen or a side, you're always like talking about whatever you're talking about, this mound. And when you go out to the mound and you get comfortable and you warm up, you realize the longer you stay on this mound, the worse your day is going to get. So you want to get on the mound, get people out, and then get off the mound. So it's a love-hate relationship in that way. And it's very strange. It's hard to describe a dynamic like that. But yeah, you want to be comfortable on the mound, but as soon as you're on the mound, you can't wait to get off of it. So that's kind of how I go through it, when especially breaking down like pitchers and stuff like that.
So going back in the journey and looking back at when you were first drafted, originally drafted back in 2001 with the Brewers as a catcher, going back and doing some research here, you were dealing with some kind of injury, so you decided to attend college, ended up pitching a whole lot there, and then the Brewers again drafted you as a pitcher. Talk to us about that whole time period, how that came about, and the draft process of now looking at the lenses as we approach the draft here this summer, how things have shifted since 2001 to 2025.
Oh yeah. Well, there's not many rounds, as there once was. I guess there was like infinite rounds. You could just sign anybody at any time. Mike Piazza was like a 50th rounder. Now he's a Hall of Famer. They've limited that. I don't think they should have, but they've limited everything. They've limited the amount of teams and the amount of people you can have in an organization. But back in the day, you could have as many people as you wanted. As far as I knew, that's how I got drafted, probably. But I was in high school. I always wanted to be a catcher. I got drafted twice as a catcher, but getting drafted in high school in 2001, I had dealt with an injury. My left shoulder, I'm right-handed, but my left shoulder swinging I actually subluxed it. I subluxed it swinging for some scouts. There was a Brewers scout, a Royal scout. I think there was an Expos scout, if you remember the Expos. So I'm dating myself probably there. But they wanted me to take batting practice after a game. And I'd pretty much had the best game of my life. We were on the road in high school. I don't know where. Couldn't even name the town. Don't have no clue. But I caught 6 innings. I threw out 3 runners. I hit a home run, 2 doubles, and a single. So it's like best game ever. This is what I do in the backyard with my kids because I don't patronize. I just dominate them if I can. And then we were having trouble in the 9th inning. So I took the gear off, went to pitch, struck out the side, and best game ever. And then the scouts were like, "Hey, will you grab a wooden bat and take batting practice?" And I said, "Sure." And my dad was there, and my dad was like, "Okay, well, I'll throw to you." And so they moved the L screen for my dad to home plate area, and I was right in front of the backstop at the very back of this high school field. And he just started throwing me batting practice, and I just started crushing baseballs. And I've been swinging a wood bat for most of my life, just because at times that was all we had as kids, just growing up in the baseball life. And I'm just hitting home runs and doubles, and I'm just crushing the baseball. And then my dad threw one up and in, and I hit it, and my left shoulder slipped out of place and came back. And that was what I didn't know at the time is that was the precursor to more problems after that. After that, I was swing and my shoulder would sublux and go in and out. Sometimes it wouldn't go back in, and ended up having to have surgery during my first year of college, I guess, in junior college. I had a torn labrum, went to Dr. Andrews in Birmingham, who's used to be the man where you went to for an injury. He's famous for doing Bo Jackson's hip surgery, but he went orthoscopically in my shoulder because at the time the MRI showed there was no tear in my labrum. Found out later it was torn. So he said this is the first time he'd ever put a stitch in a labrum in his shoulder orthoscopically. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. They do it now. They put 2 stitches in it. So anyway, I was kind of a guinea pig in that way. But because of that, the Brewers drafted me. They wanted me as a catcher, but they wanted me to get healthy. So they drafted me the second time. And I came back. I didn't do much my first year of junior college. Second year, I did really well. I was hitting well. I was catching well. And then towards the end of the junior college year, all our pitchers were getting hurt. So I started to pitch. And I basically came into a game or started a game and didn't come out of it. Pitched really well. Pitched us into the Junior College World Series. We ended up losing. And yeah, the Brewers came and said, they have the draft and follow. They had it forever, and then it went away for however many years, but now it's back where you draft a guy and then you can follow him right up until pretty close until the next draft. And so the Brewers had the rights to me is what it was called. And they said, "Hey, we're going to come to your house." They came to my house the day after we lost the Junior College World Series, and they were like, "We think you're a great player, but we want you to pitch instead of catch." And I was like, that was foreign to me because I grew up being a catcher my entire life. I was really good. I loved the way the catching stuff was, wearing wristbands, the game within the game of not letting the ball get by me, all this stuff. And they're like, "We want you to get rid of all of that and just be a pitcher." And I was like, this is nothing. A bullpen pitcher at best, like that's as much as the bat boy, that you're not doing a whole lot. You're sitting watching the game. I wanted to be on every pitch. I wanted to be a catcher. They thought I was going to have a long career. They were right. Played 18 seasons. But yeah, I never had a problem with like my throwing shoulder or my throwing arm. And so I never missed a game due to injury. So I don't know. I would have spent more time in the big leagues if I was better. But my story wasn't, oh, I was hurt and couldn't get there. I was like, I got there, just couldn't stay there. But everybody has a story. Everybody's story is different when it's tied to baseball. It's probably what I love most about it.
It's funny you mentioned Dr. Andrews' name. I feel like we used to see that name everywhere for so many big surgeries for athletes. I mean, as a wrestling fan, I feel like wrestlers would go to him as well in Birmingham. And now the name is, you see Dr. What is it? Elatrash, right? Elatrash that I feel like I see
I would
that
say
name
Dr.
constantly.
Meister. Dr. Meister in Arlington is the guy that pops up probably the most. But at the
Gotcha.
time, Dr. Andrews, I mean, I know he's probably got a good spot now. I don't think he's doing any of his surgeries anymore. But like, I think one time I went for a checkup on the shoulder. And was it the Colts? Was it Marvin Harrison? One of I think a running back for the Colts. He was there. And I was hearing Dr. Andrews like give him the keys to his car. Like, "Here, drive my Mercedes back to my guest house." I'm like, what? What about me? No, no, yeah. All right, never mind.
Full circle. Marvin Harrison's son is now in the NFL as well. So there you go.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow,
wide receiver for the Cardinals. Yep.
that makes me feel old today. So cool. Good stuff.
So another note I found interesting, kind of doing our research here, is that somewhere in the middle of your career, you completely overhauled your throwing motion from traditional over the top to sidearm. Just talk to us a little bit about what went into that decision and what the process was to actually get there and try to successfully change it.
Yeah. It wasn't my idea at all. In 2008, I made my big league debut, pitched pretty well. Brewers went to the playoffs, and I thought I was going to be like an intricate part going into next season. Like, hey, maybe I'll make the bullpen squad. Come into spring training 2009, I was one of the first guys sent down. They're like, we need starters. Go be the best starter you can be in AAA. So I was like, sweet. So I go to AAA. I'm one of the best starters in AAA. They call me up. They put me in the bullpen. And I'm like, this is terribly ironic, but whatever. Didn't go well. I was there for like 6 days. They sent me down. I went back into starting, did well again. And at the end of the year, I actually got approached by Japan. They wanted me to come be a starter in Japan. I turned it down because I was on the 40-man roster, and I thought, I'm still good. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just in between starter and reliever. That's all. And there was a regime change kind of in the coaching sector with the Brewers. So I come back to spring training 2010, and they were like, when pitchers get there, there's like, 30 pitchers that got to throw bullpens, and there's like only so many mounds. So there's like 8 pitchers that throw and then 8 pitchers that throw. And I'm wondering why I haven't gone yet. I'm like, I've been around a while. Like, do I get to go yet? They're like, no, you're going last. It's like, okay. So everybody goes, everybody leaves. And it's me and some coaches, bullpen catcher. And they're like, you need a change. I was like, do I need a change? And they're like, yeah. They're like, we think you have a great arm. You're a big, strong kid. You're athletic, but you need to change something. And I thought, if they say knuckleball, I'm leaving. I was teammates with R.A. Dickey, so I throw a decent knuckleball, but like competitively, that's a lifestyle change. Anyway, they were like, we want you to throw sidearm or at least try it. And I threw this bullpen. It did not go well because I was pretty much fighting myself, my feelings at the time, my emotions. When you strive towards something and you work towards something for years, your whole life is bent in that direction. And then suddenly people are like, that's not good enough. You got to try this. It's tough. And in the moment I was doing my best to kind of, try and do this. And anyway, got done. They were like, that was pretty good. That was okay. And I went to my locker, and one of my pitching coaches, Stan Kiles, who was my AAA pitching coach for a couple of years, he came over and was like, you're not feeling it, are you? Like, you're kind of worried about this thing. And I said, is it obvious? He's like, not really. He's like, but I know you. And he goes, I want you to embrace this sidearm thing. He's like, because it's weird and you're weird, and he's like, I think it fits you and your personality. And I think you could be really good at this. And so I said, okay. So I kept doing the sidearm thing. I didn't make the team. I went to AAA in 2010 and actually did okay for most of the year. And then the last month of the season, out of necessity, they wanted me to start. So here I am, first year sidearm, had to learn how to pitch lefties again, how to pitch righties, how to throw a breaking ball from there, how to grip my sinker because it's differently if you're, over the top or your sidearm. Had to think up all these new sequences and everything. And by the end of the year, I hadn't really put it together, but they needed me to start. And so suddenly I ended up putting it together. I did really well the last month. They brought me back to spring training. Ron Renicky takes over the Brewers, and he talks to me probably the 2 weeks into spring training. He goes, I like your stuff. He's like, every team needs a sidearm guy like you. He's like, keep doing your thing, get better at your craft. He's like, you'll be in the big leagues soon. I was like, what? I'm not even on the roster anymore. I got taken off the roster after they told me they wanted me to go sidearm. So I was like, that's kind of a bummer. But yeah, a couple months into the season, I was back in the big leagues throwing sidearm. And I learned so much since then because there's no handbook on what to do when you're sidearm. First 3 years were kind of a struggle for me, but I ended up doing it for another seven or 8 years. So I learned a lot. And now there's people on stuff like this where social media, I'll find people messaging me questions about sidearm or baseball or whatever. And I can speak to over the top. I can speak to sidearm. I can talk about questions about catching. hitting or anything like that. So my journey was probably, it wasn't great, wasn't the best. But I enjoy the platform that I have where I get to share some of that knowledge and of course the people that I've met along the way, but it's not easy to do a transition like that, but somehow I got through it and I was actually probably a better pitcher for it.
With that experience under your belt, when you heard about Sean Manaea last year, I think the story goes he was watching Chris Sale and
Yeah.
kind of decided, I want to try that, which, it's different because this is, at least the story sounds like it was his decision more so than, a coach's decision or someone else in the the front office or a coach. What were your thoughts when you saw him do that? Were you surprised he was able to make that transition as successfully as he did?
I mean, there's probably a lot of guys that he sought out, and talked to try to make that the best transition possible. But look, there's a new thing on Baseball Savant. If you look at it, it shows the angle of these guys from year to year, which I found interesting. I don't know if it's accurate or not. I like to think it's accurate because this is what they use on TV and stuff. And they're showing guys on what their arm angle is year to year.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the older guys, a lot of times you'll see it start at whatever degrees, and it goes lower. I think over time, you just feel more comfortable with the arm going lower and lower. I don't know if it's an innings thing or a pitch thing or an age thing. It's not the years, it's the mileage, right? And I think there's something along the way where you're like, man, I can get a lot of movement on this pitch if I don't have to go all the way over the top with my arm. And so, some people gravitate towards that. And there's guys that have had really good careers doing that. I wouldn't tell a high school guy to do that right out of the gate. And I wouldn't tell many college guys, but there's something to it. I think you can always go back on it. It's like, I would never tell anybody to be a pitcher, right? If you have kids listening right here, I would never, don't be a pitcher. Go be a position player. Go be an athlete. Go do whatever sport you want to do. And then once you reach the end of that, then be like, I'm going to go pitch. You can always go back and pitch. You can always go back and you have a fresh arm. If you know how to build your arm up and then learn how to, throw bullpens and all, you can always go back and pitch. You can't always go back and do the other stuff. So if you're a pitcher and when you're 8 years old and you're trying to do it every year for the rest of your life, it's going to be a tough road. A lot of those guys blow out. But if you can reinvent yourself, that's a very nuanced thing. I think you're going to see more of that going forward for guys that are trying to hang on, trying to reinvent themselves is a good way to get new eyes on you. Hey, you remember me? I'm here from however many years ago. Now I throw sidearm, or now I throw this pitch, and you get scouts looking at you. It's all about getting on the field. It's all about getting to the big leagues. And, you can probably tell over the course of history, people will do whatever it takes to get to the big leagues.
So let's get into the Brewers a little bit here. They entered the season with some obvious noticeable changes on the roster. How did you view the front office's approach this past offseason? Were there any moves they made that surprised you, or maybe any moves they didn't make that you wish they had?
Not really. I mean, I'm trying to think of any of them that were very specific. I mean, they traded Devin Williams because they're not going to be able to afford him. So they were like, get him on his values high. I like the idea of getting Nestor Cortez. I mean, he's from the Yankees. I like the way he pitches. No one can do that. If you're a hitter, you're never going to face another guy like that in your lifetime. At that years ago, decades ago, when my dad played in the big leagues, it was Louis Tiant, like a guy that could change your rhythm. He was all about missing barrels. You're not going to square this guy up. Since then, he's been hurt, so we haven't got to see him pitch a bunch. I know the Brewers couldn't keep Willie Adames. I mean, they would have to sell the stadium probably, do whatever it takes to get Willie Adames. But Willie Adames was awesome human being. He's worth every penny the Giants paid him. I don't care what he's batting right now. It won't matter. Just watch what he does at the end of the year. The Giants are going to be immediately competitive because he's on board. He's that kind of human. He does that kind of stuff in the clubhouse. I got to see him. We were in San Francisco, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. I wasn't even trying to see him. I don't like to bother guys, whether I was former teammates with them or maybe I know him from broadcasting. I really try to not bother him that much. And I was walking in the tunnel. I was the broadcast crew, like all the cameras or I don't know what you would call it. the truck where the director and producer are, is in left field. Where you see that Exxon car guy or whatever in left field at Oracle Park in San Francisco. Yep. So I'm heading down the back tunnels there. And I think the Giants had just won, and Willie Adames was coming to do a press conference. And I just happened to be walking by while they were escorting him across like this, little Segway area. And he stopped and was like giving me a hug, asking me how I'm doing, how's my family. And I'm like, oh, it's good. It's like, you're the hero of the game, and like, why are you, doing this? I was like, I don't want to bother you, but he stopped, had time. He does that for everybody. And he plays the game with such a joy. I was saying very adamantly, like, sign this guy, give him whatever he wants if you can do it. The Brewers couldn't do it. There's just there's no way to do it. If they could keep him, that would have been amazing. But other than that, I think the Brewers are fine. I think their depth is amazing. I think they're really good in the starting pitching, except they're all hurt. And they got amazing players coming up through the minor leagues. That is what people are going to find out here in the next year or so, how good the Brewers farm system is, because it's at every position at some point. They have a guy that's above average, potential superstar. The ceiling's through the roof. And how's this year going to play out? I have no idea. But I think if the one thing I could change with the Brewers is go get a big, huge bat to maybe play third base, go by, or DH. But the way it's played out with Yelich having back surgery, he's been DHing a lot. So there's things out of your control. You can be a GM I don't know, if y'all are catering towards people that want to be GMs or if they're fans that are like, I could do this better than this guy. Great. On paper, you can do and have the best plan in the world, and it will not go to that at all. That's called life. And it's definitely called being a GM. And I think the GMs, they earn their money not by throwing a ton of money at people, but it's when stuff doesn't work out, what do you do then? And that's something that the Brewers have done better than probably almost anybody, is they can figure out what to do when the game of baseball strikes, which it will. This baseball will, come up and grab somebody that's like the heart and soul of your team, or the one thing you feel like you have depth on, suddenly you don't have enough of. Teams fall by the wayside from those moments, but the Brewers have been able to stay afloat.
So Willie Adames leaving, longtime clubhouse anchor. Who fills the void right now? I know it's early season. Is it a collaborative approach, or is it just next man up situation? Because he felt like a leader last year watching from afar.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I compared it to, and I'm not in the clubhouse. I try to stay out of the clubhouse. That's the player's spot. I remember when I was actually in the clubhouse and broadcast people would come in, and I know what the players said about the people that came in. So I was like, I don't want to be that guy. So I stay out of the clubhouse, but I compare it to, in 2011, we had Prince Fielder, and the team was good. Everybody knew that, but we would lose. We'd lose a game. We'd come in and maybe lose a bad one. It wasn't like we got crushed, or, it was late. However it worked, it would be a bad loss. We'd come in, and after about 5-10 minutes, Prince Fielder would walk in, and he'd make a joke about somebody, or he would do something and just diffuse the whole, we have to hang our head. He would make a joke about like Ricky Weeks. Like, you see Ricky when he got hit with that ball? Like, like he would make a joke and everybody would kind of laugh. And then we go on about our day. And it made the team better, because you're not sulking. You're not worried about tomorrow, because the guy that goes out there and plays every day, who's, one of the best players in baseball, is like, this is just a loss, guys. We have so many more games. There's going to be more of these losses, but we're hoping there's going to be more wins than this. And I compare that to this year with the Brewers. The big missing piece has been Adames. And it's like, who's filling that void? Because in 2012, when Prince wasn't there and we lost a game, there was nobody come in to kind of diffuse that moment. You just sat there and everybody kind of sulked about one loss in the first week of the season. Like, who cares? You have so many more games, and you can't sit there and act like every loss is, oh my God. You don't want your team. If you're a fan of a team, I don't care what the team is, you don't want your guys sitting around the clubhouse mulling over this terrible loss. You can do that as a fan, especially if you're betting on baseball. But if you're the guy that wants a team to do well, you want them to go, okay, we lost. Let's learn from it, brush it off. The quicker you get over it, the better. And I think the Brewers have had trouble with that, just because they haven't filled a void with somebody like Willie Adames, but every team is different. You have to find your own balance and your own rhythm. I kind of hope Rhys Hoskins is that guy. Rhys Hoskins, after they've had some closed door meetings, he has gone off with the bat. He has been swinging the bat very well. He's been not only talking the talk, but walking the walk. And that's a guy that you can get behind. So he may be the guy right now that this team needs.
To switch gears just for a minute, I mean, we'll get back to the product on the field for sure before we're done here. But the Brewers and the entire baseball world lost an absolute icon in Bob Uecker months ago. Do you have any Bob Uecker stories or anything you could share with us about your time maybe interacting with Bob?
Well, I got a sweatshirt on right now.
There you go.
Love it.
Yeah, Ukes, he was one of a kind. There'll never be anybody like him. You know, the thing around is who's gonna fill his shoes. And we're like, they buried those shoes. There's nobody can put those on. They go with him. One of the most unbelievable and talented people I've ever gotten to know. I first met him when I was with the Brewers, I think maybe in 2006 or 7. And I couldn't believe it because I grew up on the VHS tapes, and y'all may be too young for the VHS tapes, but he had these wacky World of Sports. I grew up on that. I had 4 channels. It was WGN. It was Harry Carey, like, hi, everybody. Or you're putting in E.T. or Little Big League, you know, or Star Wars, definitely Star Wars. And then these wacky World of Sports, Bob Uecker presents. And I remember watching this. And so later on, like you watch Mr. Belvedere, and I'm like, that's the guy from the Wacky World tapes. You know, and then Major League, when I was old enough to watch Major League, actually, I probably wasn't old enough to watch Major League, but I watched Major League, and I'm like, hey, that's the guy from those tapes. And then you realize he's not the voice of the, you know, Cleveland team. He's the voice of the Brewers. And so as I kind of pulled those layers back, I get to realize how amazing this guy is. My grandfather used to have all the taped Johnny Carsons, and I would go through and watch those, and he was like on every one of those. He was like on Johnny Carson more than anybody. And so you have this perception of somebody. So when I met him, it was pretty surreal. He knows everybody, knows everybody's name. He talks to everybody, gave time for everybody. I got to be part of these like Brewer fan fests. We would do these these games and stuff. So me and him got to be on these game shows together. It was really cool. So I got to know him as a player. And then when I went over to the broadcast side of the world, he was amazing. You know, he was encouraging. He's like, you can do this. You know, he's like, you're probably scared. He goes, I still don't know what I'm doing. So you're in good company if you don't feel like you know what you're doing. I made him laugh one time. That's probably the highlight of my life. He was the first person I met when I got called up to the big leagues, or not met, but saw. I got called up in 2008, May 23rd. Against the Nationals. I got called up, showed up. The taxi dropped me off at the wrong part of the stadium, and I'm sprinting through. I'm wearing a suit, which I shouldn't have been, but wearing a suit, carrying my big baseball bag, and this bus, you know, I'm trying to run all the way around, and this bus pulls up, and the door opens, and Bob Uecker gets out, and he was like, hey, he's like, you look stressed, or you okay, or you look a little sweaty. I was sweating through my suit, and I'm like, oh, thanks. All that to say is he meant a lot to so many people. And what's fun about being part of the Brewers family is I'll be on the concourse after like a pre and post game show, and I walk around, and these fans come up, and they could care less about me, I think, but they come up to me and they're like, hey, love the Brewers. And I'm like, well, you're wearing head to toe Brewers. I could have assumed, but they're like, you know what? We love this team. We love this franchise. We love Bob Uecker. And then especially this year, they're like, one time I saw Bob Uecker getting on the elevator. I yelled at him. He looked at me, he pointed at me. That was awesome that he just acknowledged me, you know, not reading too much into it, like he's some sort of, you know, entity or whatever, but everybody has one of these stories that they feel connected, whether it's just his voice on the radio growing up. I mean, it spans 3 generations. And seeing all the tributes that have come from traveling around to these different parks and what he meant to baseball. It's you know, it hasn't gone away. And there's guys that, you know, like Jeff Levering, who I work with every day. Every time one of these tributes come on, you can just tell that he is trying to fight the emotions that come with it. But it's real. I feel like people are going to feel it throughout the year. I think people are going to feel it next year because he meant so much. He was in baseball for so long. If only I could be in baseball, I would love to be a part of this game that long. Very few people get to do it. Very few people get to be popular at doing it. And he was probably one of the best that ever lived.
So, I mean, influenced by Bob Uecker, you strike a balance between levity, insight, conversations about baseball, and navigating. We talked about before, not letting a loss hang on everybody, and especially as a broadcaster. How do you balance that, like on the broadcast, for the fans that are at home that maybe a heartbreaking loss happens? You're their trusted voice, but you're also an entertainer, and this season has a lot of ups and downs. So, what type of responsibility do you take with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Next. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a tough one, especially with social media. I don't condone social media. I don't feel like people should go out there and do it. It's my kids don't have it. I don't think they need it. I barely want it, but in my profession, I feel like I should have it. I didn't want it for years. Got Twitter and Facebook, I think, in 2013. And what I found is what I think social media was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a way to meet people that you would never have a chance to meet. And then it's turned into, pretty evil. I try to wield it like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. I don't think that's going to be a thing, but my first thing on Twitter was being able to see somebody on a city I was coming to. So if I say I'm traveling to Des Moines, Iowa, play the Cubs, AAA, and someone's like, "Hey, man, like, I'd love to come to the bullpen. Will you sign my hat?" And I'm like, "Sweet, 100% I would." And they're like, "I can't believe you messaged me back." And I'm like, "It's a big world text message. Like, why not?" And so you kind of, I show up in the bullpen and they're like, "Hey, I'm the guy that messaged you on Instagram or whatever." I'm like, "Sweet, yeah, I'll sign your baby," whatever. And didn't think much of it, but now that I'm on the broadcast side of it, because nobody cares if you're in the minor leagues. Nobody cares. You blow a game in the minor leagues, nobody's coming after you like saying, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" In the broadcast sector, people can just not like you. Like I got a whole list on my phone of like all these messages of people. They tag me too.
Oh, God.
They're like, "Man, you're really bad," and they make sure that I know it. Or, "Hey, you said this wrong," or, "Hey, you did this wrong," and it hurts, right? Like you're like, "Oh man, nobody wants to be criticized." But for me personally, I am going to be, I want to treat the game and the broadcast side like I was sitting in the bullpen. You're sitting in the bullpen, you're watching the game, but you're having fun. Like these dudes are serious about their job, but they're also having fun. And they're actually the ones performing. Broadcasters are just commenting on what these guys are doing. But for inning after inning, maybe 5 innings, these guys are shooting the breeze. They're telling stories. They're laughing. They're goofing off with the fans. There's all this stuff going on. I think there's room for that. I think you should do that. If you took it too serious, baseball is not your sport. You can like the uniforms, or you can find out what a guy hits on a Tuesday in, September. That's real data that you can find. It can be as shallow or as deep as you want it. But to me, I just try to make it entertaining. And I'm going to do it just like if I was sitting in the bullpen. And the best compliment I ever got was, do you know Miles Michaelis for the Cardinals?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Great mustache. Never met this guy that I knew of. We were playing, the Brewers playing the Cardinals at home. We were at American Family Field and never met him. I could tell it was him because, we have to do all these, we see these guys when we're doing the show. And he's walking out to like batting practice in left field, stops, turns around, sees me. I'm standing like behind home plate by the grounds crew. Don't know why. I'm just hanging out over there. Here he comes. He starts walking towards me. And I'm like, Miles Michaelis. I'm like, did I face him in AAA? I was like, did I hit him? Maybe I hit him. I hit a lot of people in the minor league. And we played AAA Memphis a lot. I'm like, maybe I struck him out. Maybe I got a hit off of him. I don't know. Why is this guy coming at me? He looks like he's going to hurt me or something, And he comes up and he was just like, "Hey, you're Tim Dillard, right?" And I was like, "I am Miles Michaelis. How are you?" Anybody famous, I called him by the first and last name. Anyway. And so I was like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Nothing." He's like, "I just want to say," and I don't know what prompted this. He goes, "I just want to say that I've heard some of your broadcasting." And I was thinking, oh God, right. As a former player, honestly, I do care what the fans think, but I care more about what the players think. Like if somebody's mom or if a guy in AAA that got sent down from the big leagues is hearing me on a broadcast, I care more about them because they're in the fight. They're not just watching it objectively. They're in the fight. So I really care about what players think. And he goes, I've listened to your some of your broadcasts. He goes, I think you're crushing it. I said, really? He goes, you are using lingo, and what you're talking about is so relevant to what we're thinking and what we're doing on the mound. He's like, I think people are surprised by that. And I was like, well, a lot of people could care less about it. But he was like, no, you're doing it. And, said a lot of nice things. And to me, that was the biggest compliment I've ever gotten, because this is a player that's actually still playing that has heard me and was like, this is what I'd never met the guy. Anyway, I'm a huge fan. I hope the Brewers crush him every single time he pitches, but love the guy. He has a great name in the game. And that was unwarranted, and that stuck with me just because that's what you want. You want to bring baseball and explain baseball as a player would. And maybe I fail at that at times, and the players will pick up more on it than maybe a fan, but I want to get there. I want to be able to explain it, because there's so much more going on than guy holds baseball, throws baseball, guy tries to hit baseball. There's so much more going on behind the scenes. It's unreal. I want to share that. I want to share the thing behind the thing that maybe no one's ever thought about or no one's ever seen before. But again, to your question, not everyone's going to like it, but I am trying to get better every single time I'm out there.
And you know what? We need more of that just in the world in general. Sometimes one positive comment in person from somebody that's a part of the craft can outweigh all the Twitter trolls that are, saying things that are not as nice. But it's good to hear that. And it's cool to hear that the players are, listening to different broadcasts and thinking about it that way. Let's talk a little bit more about the Brewers here. There's a couple stats that really stood out, kind of digging into them a little bit. So last year, they apparently led all of Major League Baseball with 39 comeback wins. And that's how I think of them. I think of the Brewers the last several years as this just gritty, they just don't die, that kind of team. This year, they're apparently, I think this is correct, 0-15 when the opponent scores first. From what you've seen, is it just going back to that's just baseball and that's the kind of game it is? Or is there something to that in your mind?
Well, I think they won one.
One.
But that's like a few days ago. It's you're going to play all sorts of kinds of games. They play a lot of close ones. There was a point there where they only had like 4 save opportunities, even though this was like halfway through April. They only had like 4 saves, the lowest in the big leagues, but their wins were high. They were just beating teams by a lot or getting beat. There were no save opportunities, and so. Very rare. I don't know where they stand now. And you're going to run into seasons like that where things don't add up on paper all the time. No specific way to draw it up. I was aware of that stat for most of it. I think it is like 1-15 now or something like that. But not a good stat you want to be a part of. To me, it shows that guys are defeated early. And to me, the clubhouses I've been on, it's almost like everybody's waiting for someone else to do something. But it's a tough place in the clubhouse. When you're winning, it's awesome. And everything's amazing. You can't wait to get up, can't wait to go to the clubhouse. When the team's not doing well, and especially when there's a glaring deficiency there where it's like, well, we can't come back. Whether it's 1 run or 10 runs, we got no shot. The more you look into that and realize that, then you start believing it. And then you have guys coming to the clubhouse every day like, well, if they score in the first, we're done. It's the manager's job to kind of come in and, debunk that. It's leaders in the clubhouse's job. And one thing about baseball players in general, you don't get to the big leagues without getting some skills. One of the skills that you get from being a baseball player is like 51st dates. Everybody's Drew Barrymore. You go to bed at night, good or bad game, does not matter. You wake up and you can't even remember what city you're in. You can't remember what happened yesterday. The everyday players, like the position players, they may be like, oh, where I got hit by a ball, or where I dove in the outfield hurts. But they can't put their finger on like, wait, what exactly happened? How am I supposed to feel today? These guys have an amazing ability to be able to push all of that stuff aside. They don't care the trends. They don't care what's going on. And wake up every day like every day is the most amazing day ever. Christian Yelich had a quote a few years ago. He was like, you wake up with the hope that today is going to be better. And it's not a gimmick. You don't even have to tell yourself that as a player. You wake up and you're just like, I'm going to do my best today. and you get to show up with your teammates and everyone's on the same page of like, all right, it's time to win. And that's it. And you think that there's more to it than that, but it's a very believable thing. Like these guys are convinced that today is the day we figure it out. And if they don't figure it out 100 times in a row, 101 times, they're going to wake up thinking, all right, today's the day we figure it out. I can't explain it. You could, people could be like, well, these guys are idiots. Oh, you're part of the White Sox, team. Like, do you see what they did last year? Look at the Rockies. Those guys do not care. I mean, they want to win, but there's a lot of stuff out of your control. And the best players in the world realize that they can't control the other stuff. They can control what they do, and they can control their effort and their attitude. And I promise these guys wake up every day going, I'm ready to go to the field. I'm ready to win a ball game. I don't care what it takes. And I'm telling you, I don't know if guys are born with that. I don't think I was born with that. Maybe I was. It's a skill that I acquired. And I do that in broadcasting. I'll have a bad day in broadcasting. I wake up and I'm like, what city am I in? Have no idea. They're like, hey, what do you think about that double in the sixth yesterday? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I can't. I'm sure there's video evidence. But for me, I'm like, I've just completely wiped the slate clean. It's about tonight and going forward. That's all.
Well, as a reminder, in Cleveland right now, so we're naming the city, the Brewers won earlier today, 9-5 against the Guardians, led by a 4-for-4 day from Rhys Hoskins. We mentioned him before. Great day for him. But going back, they were shut out 2 days in a row before this win. This was the second time in a month of May that they've been shut out back-to-back games. We referenced some of the offense scuttling a little bit there. They said 2 games under 500. Do you think the offense has the ability to be more consistent of what we saw today, or is it more of a mixed bag of finding out who they are?
Well, I mean, they didn't have a problem in April. They scored as much runs as anybody. They were, I think, averaging over 5 runs a game. It's only been recently in May that they've, had a drought, but they're still in it. They're still close. I mean, they're still up around 500. If they can, the next time they face the Cubs, if they're within 3 games of the Cubs, then they'll be super fine. If they were a bad team, the record would completely show it. If they were a phenomenal team, the record would show it. This team is trying to figure it out. They've had some big wins. They've had some big losses. Even Matt Arnold, the GM, I'm sure he has more letters and, words to his title. It's like GM of baseball operations, Sultan. I can't remember all the words, but whatever it is, he was like, I can't, talking about the defense specifically, he's like, I can't put my finger on it. I've been watching, and I get paid to watch the team all the time. It's like a bunch of unicorn events. It's like one guy that never makes a bad play makes this play. It's like the guy that always hits this ball here, hits the ball here, and then it's caught. Or the guy that always steals this base is somehow caught. Or the guy that never grounds into a double play grounds into a play. And it's been something new every single day, pretty much this entire month. And I'm sure there's a lot of teams that can say that. I don't follow those. I follow this one. So I feel like they're going to be continually getting better. I don't see them getting worse in any way. They're going to get better. They're going to figure it out. They have a lot of young guys. They're one of the, I think, top 5 youngest offenses in baseball. So they're trying to figure it out. They got to be led by some of the guys that are older, and a few are not living up to what their expectations are. But that'll come. These guys get better with at bats. They do. And if they have a young guy that they're giving at bats to, he's gonna get better. That's just the way it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to be sellers at the deadline or anything like that. I don't even think they're thinking that far ahead. They're like, who do we have? Who do we have that's going to pitch today? To pitch tomorrow? They got an off day. They'll figure it out. They'll figure out who's healthy, why the lineup works, why it doesn't work. There's a few things I would do to the lineup personally to make it better, I feel, but I'm also not the GM and I'm not the manager, so it's not my job. And sometimes that's good. You don't want a job like that, because just when you think you know it all, you'd be surprised on how much you don't know goes into all of the stuff that goes into a Major League Baseball team.
Let's talk about the guy that'll probably be leading the Brewers for a long time here, Jackson Chourio. What have you seen as far as his growth this year, and what do you think his ceiling is?
Honestly, I don't think we've seen it yet in a year and a month and a half of a season for big leagues for him. He's from Maracaibo, Venezuela. I played winter ball in Maracaibo, so he probably watched me play when I was 10. And my GM in Venezuela, I got to see him in Miami last year. I actually was late for a pregame show. I'm not really proud of that, but I was talking to this guy and he was telling me about Jackson Chourio. And I was like, give me the insight. Number one, great family. Great family. You know, when you sign a guy, especially to a long-term deal, you want to know the ins and outs of what kind of person he is, what his home life is like, all that stuff. And he was like, everything was through the roof. It's stellar. It's amazing. You would have no idea. This guy's bat speed's unbelievable. Knows how to take care of himself. He's responsible. And one of the biggest things that stuck with me before I was late and almost lost my job, the biggest thing that stuck with me was he said, this guy can learn faster than anyone I've ever seen. And I was like, well, you had me in, you know, Venezuela. Like I learned pretty quick. You know, I did pretty good. And so he told me that's been over a year now. And it stuck with me because I'm watching this kid and he learns so quickly. You can say like let's say it's a defensive issue. You can see him work on that and then get better. And you can see it on a base running idea. And hitting is the hardest thing on planet Earth. It didn't seem that way when I was on the mound, but hitting is the hardest thing to do on planet Earth. And the way his thought process is during an at bat, and then definitely the second at bat when he faces somebody again, because there's times when he'll have an at bat and look like he's never swung before. You know, he swings, he's out in 2 pitches and pops up to the catcher or third base or, you know, first base, whatever, and then goes back to the dugout. Next time up, just laser beam in the gap, almost on the same pitch, almost on the same location. This kid's light years ahead of where he should be. And I know that because the whole time I see a hitter up there, I'm like, what am I throwing him? Like if I had my stuff or if I had this pitcher's stuff, how am I attacking him? And he gets out and I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I would pitch him. Next at bat, I would do this. And he's like, whack. So he's ahead of the curve in that way, which you don't see a lot at 20. I think he's still 21, just turned 21. It's pretty special. He's going to be as good as he wants to be. He has a great support staff, people like Freddie Peralta, William Contreras. I mean, he's got a little core of guys that take care of him. Because again, he's 21. I mean, think about when you were 21. I mean, you going out doing your laundry. Do you know how to get a lease on an apartment? You know, like you go to another country, you know the rules of the road, how to drive. Like there's a lot that's going on with this kid, and he shows up every day with a big smile. I see how hard he works coming to the field early. He jumped in last year with William Contreras and Willie Adames, got on the field early before anybody would show up. I was there early because they let me in the building. My key card would work, and I just like to go, early. Anytime you can be at a ballpark, go be there. And I would watch these dudes just take swing after swing, and then they would talk about their swing, and they would talk about where the ball goes and the flight. And I mean, they talk baseball more than most people do, and definitely 21-year-olds don't do that. And so now he's got this crash course of what it's like to be a big leaguer. And so it's only going to get better from there because he has such a good experience at such a young age.
So on the pitching side of the ball, we mentioned before some injuries have been piling up in the rotation. Brandon Woodruff still sidelined, several arms banged up. Aaron Savali, Nestor Cortez, you mentioned on the IL 60. How would you assess the team's pitching depth and to be able to withstand this storm that is really this right now in this portion of the season? Seems like they need the reinforcements to return.
Well, you could add Robert Gasser in there. You could add Aaron Ashby, yep. DL Hall, Jose Quintana, just like today, I think. Yep. They went and found guys. They got hurt. Went and found other guys. They got hurt. They're calling up guys from AAA that are doing amazing. I mean, I think they have more depth than they realized. They used Chad Patrick, and if you get a chance to watch this guy pitch, he's not going to be blazing 98 with a 92 mile an hour slider and K everybody. The guy can pitch. Like you're going to watch him and go, I feel like it's 1992 or whatever that means. Like this guy's hitting spots. And you could say the same about Logan Henderson. He pitched today through 5 innings against the Guardians, 2 runs. Last time out against the A's, he threw 6 innings. His major league debut, gave up 1 run. He's got like 16 strikeouts, I think, in 11 innings. He just puts the ball where he wants. He knows what kind of pitcher he is. And I'm telling you, when you get to the big leagues, you feel like you can do everything better. You feel like if you've only hit a ball 410 feet, you get in the box, you feel like you can hit 490 feet. You feel like you can hit it 9,000 feet. If you're a pitcher and you've never thrown 95, you feel like you can throw 110. Like the big leagues just does that to you. I don't know why, but you stand out there and you're like, I can do it all. I can jump higher than I've ever higher. I can dunk now. Mom, how'd you know? The big leagues make you feel like that. And to see these young guys get these opportunities and to continually be the pitcher that they know they can be and say, I'm not going to try to do this. I'm just going to pitch my game, which seems very cliche, but they're fighting against what it's like to be in the limelight and have this adrenaline. And they're pitching very well. Tobias Myers, you can throw Tobias Myers in there as well. These guys are young. They're inexperienced in a lot of ways, and yet they're still getting major league hitters out, and they're doing it very well and very efficiently too. So, yeah, they wish they had Brandon Woodruff, and they wish they had Quintana and Cortez and Savali. I mean, they wish they had all these guys, but they don't. So what do? You don't, sit around and hang your head. You just sit there and go, okay, who do we have? And that's got a lot of opportunity knocks for these younger guys, and they've taken advantage of it. And again, that goes back to the farm system. Not every farm system is going to go out on a limb wanting to make playoffs and use their guys in their system. They really want to make playoffs. They're going to go make moves and go find somebody else. Brewers go, let's see what we got, and what they got is good.
Well, I got to ask you about one more name that we've heard now for a couple years that hasn't made his debut in Milwaukee yet, and that's the Miz, Jacob Misiorowski. He's looked great in AAA, 3-0, 1.49 ERA, almost 11.5 K per nine. He's hit 102 on the gun.
Yeah.
Apparently now people are excited that he's developing a changeup, which could be a game changer for a guy like him. Do we see him, especially now Quintana, like you mentioned, another guy on the IL? Do you think we see him soon?
I think he'll get his chance. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He had some bullpen time last year. That was the rumor, like, hey, they're going to call him up and put him in the bullpen. If they have a whole bunch of starters and they're healthy and they're doing well, he may be a guy that gets called up to the bullpen if needed. If they continually are trying to piece these starters together, then he's going to get a chance to be a starter. I don't think he's on the 40-man right now, but I saw him pitch a couple games last year. One in particular, he pitched and he was in relief, and also Craig Yoho. They pitched back to back, and I'm not going to lie. There was about 3 innings there where I'm like, no hitter who stepped in that batter's box had a chance. You just knew it. And I think the hitters knew it. They were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. If they don't swing, it's a strike. If they do swing, it's a strike, and they missed it. It was some of the elitist thing I've ever seen in AAA. Is Misiorowski ready? Absolutely, he's ready. He needs a shot. And I've seen a lot of good pitchers. There's some names I could throw out there that you've probably never heard of guys that had pitched amazing in AAA. And they sustained that for a month or 2 months or whatever the starts are, 5, 10 starts, and didn't get their chance. And then see what happens. There's negative effects. And I've seen guys that got called up way too soon that had negative effects. There's a very strange window when you call a guy up. To me, you can just sense it. If you're in the clubhouse, if they go to the coaches and go, is this guy ready for the big leagues? And you have a coach that you trust and they go, yeah, I've seen this guy. This guy's next start should be in the big leagues. And you take that guy at their word, find a way to get this guy in the big leagues. I've seen it where there was a guy, Johnny Helwig, I think it was 2000, I can't remember, 2012, maybe 14, have no idea. Bet one of the best pitchers in AAA I'd ever seen. And he just kept going out there and dominating. And I'm going, this guy should not be pitching here. Call this guy up. And they waited until he failed. I think he had 1 or maybe 2 starts in a row where he failed. And then they called him up. They called him up and it didn't go well. And I don't know if he ever got another chance after that. Wow. And that was an example of waiting too long. And that happens. And how you don't have a feel for that is beyond me, because I can see it, but it helps being in the clubhouse every day. So if I was a coach, I can be like, this guy, if I was a AA coach, I would be able to watch a game after seeing all these games and go, this guy does not need to play another game in AA. I don't care what you have to do. Anything more than this is going to be negative effects. This guy, this is the point where he's good enough to go ahead. He probably knows he's good enough to get called up. You need to make it happen. I think Misiorowski's there. I mean, what he's been doing is pretty amazing. You don't pump up 102, in the first couple innings, just absolutely, throwing strikes. I think the walks were an issue. Now I don't think the walks are an issue. The strikeouts are up. His strike percentage is up. His stuff plays. I don't care if he has a changeup or not. I mean, he can get people out. So is there a spot? Is the time right? I don't know. I haven't talked to my guys in AAA. I guess I should get on that. But those guys see him every day. If they think he's ready, you sit there and you call a guy and you say, hey, he's ready, call him up, and you find a place for him, because anything past that can have negative effects sometimes.
So while you were talking, I did look up Johnny Helwig to see where his journey took him. So
man, I'm not hating on John. I love Helwig.
So he did wind up playing in the MPB, Hiroshima Toyo Carp, from 2018, 2019. And to turn it all back to where we are, Long Island, New York here, he did play a season with the Long Island Ducks. So
there you go.
spent the summer watching him pitch.
I pitched against the Ducks.
Oh, nice. Central Islip over here, Long Island, New York. That's a shouting distance from both of us over here.
Yeah, that's
nice.
Good Ducks.
Well, I mean, I was with, who was I with? Lancaster Barnstormers.
Oh, yeah, we know them.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. So as we step
I can't remember what happened.
If we step into the realm of hypothetical, we like to end our conversations with some fun banter back and forth. So if you could suit up for one more outing and face one more hitter from your era, or you can be creative with where you want to take this, who would it be and why?
You know, I would probably want to face Albert Pujols. And the reason I say that is I was in the bullpen getting ready, going in against the Cardinals, and the pitching coach, the bullpen coach, one of their jobs is like, let you know, like, you're focused on getting ready to go into a game. And then they're telling you, okay, you're going to face this guy, this guy, this guy. And while you're throwing, they'll say, okay, you need to throw this pitches to this guy. You know, they're giving you a scouting report in real time. And they were like, Pujols is your first guy. He's leading off the inning, you know, and I'm this sidearm righty, and I'm thinking my job's to get righties out. And at this time, Albert Pujols is probably the best righty in baseball. So I'm like, here it is. Here it is. I'm finally going to get to see how good I am. You know, like, this is me versus the best. And I mean, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And I remember running out there, I was like, I'm ready. I felt like I was confident in my stuff. I was like, this is it. I'm ready for this. My whole life has been to this moment to face a future Hall of Famer, and just, you know, am I going to punch him out? And I was like, no. Don't think those thoughts. Just get him out. You know, maybe break a bat. That'd be cool too. Wink, you know, like, just something. And I run out there, and the whole time I'm warming up, I'm like, dude, this is nails. Ball's moving. I got my location down. I mean, velo's good. Here's my curveball. It's nails. So I, you know, take the ball down. I go to get it from the shortstop, and he throws it to me, and I'm got my back to the hitter, and I'm just like, I'm taking a deep breath, like, oh, I'm trying not to, you know, this is a big deal. And so I'm trying to calm myself down. I turn around, and they go, now batting for the St. Louis Cardinals, pinch hitter Mark Hamilton. And I'm like, Mark Hamilton, we were in the fall league together. And so I look up, he's like the skinny lefty, and he's like, oh, you know, he's like saying hi to me. And I'm like, I was like, anyway, I think I got him out. But if I could go back just for my era, I would like to have that moment where maybe I could get Pujols out. That'd be cool. Or maybe he hits one into oblivion. Either way, I feel like that would be a good one.
That's a great redemption story, like they do in Tosh Point oh, the redemption moment where you like turn around and there it is. So I love that answer.
Yeah, that has to be the answer with that experience.
Sure.
Tim, we're going to talk one thing non-baseball here to kind of end our time together here. So one thing that caught my eye on social media, on Instagram, is you did these brackets that were super entertaining of all different categories. So baseball movies bracket, fast food bracket. There was a discontinued food and drink bracket, which I thought was pretty hysterical. Yummy. The one that stuck out to me and that caught my eye was the Nintendo 64 games bracket. And this is what I grew up with here. So maybe I'm aging myself now, but I'd say I agree with you. 007, right? GoldenEye winning the whole thing. I'm definitely not going to fight that. The one thing, and Steve, maybe I'll go to you here. I mean, there's other games here that are great. Mario Kart, obviously, NFL Blitz, Mario Tennis. We can go on and on.
Classic.
Zelda, maybe it's just because I'm not a Zelda guy, and some people are going to hate on me for that. Beating No Mercy in the first round, WWF No Mercy. I don't know. WWF No Mercy is like a critical part of my, I don't know how old I was back then, but it's a critical part of my N64 days. So I would challenge you on that one, but it might just be because I'm not a Zelda guy. I don't have a lot of Zelda experience.
Yeah, I wasn't big on Zelda either. What's funny about the brackets, and you'd be surprised if you ever look through the comments, if you really have no time. I did one of the brackets on like favorite color, just to show that, just to show that those are my brackets. Those aren't your brackets, and people couldn't fathom that. I did one about fast food, and people are like, "How in the world could you not pick Culver's?" Because I work in Wisconsin, and I'm like, "Well, what's your favorite color?" And they're like, "Green." I'm like, "Well, my favorite color is orange." Like, you're gonna yell at me because I don't like green as much as you? Like, what are we talking about? It's ridiculous. Those are my brackets. I was trying to come up with so many things and be like, what do I like? It's almost like a getting to know you more, and that was my explanation. And I was actually with a friend tonight that we graduated high school together. And I used to go over his house. We'd play the wrestling game. That's where I played it on N64. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen that. But to me, I played a lot of adventure games, sure, but the video games I particularly loved are the ones I could play with my friends. So all the 4-player games, like there was a lot of people that attacked me on that bracket thing for why didn't you put this or why didn't you put this? And I'm like, those are 1-player games. Like I could care if I'm by myself, I barely play video games. If I have people with me, we're throwing up a projector screen and we are playing Mario Kart all the way through college, or GoldenEye. That's just what you did. And then when we were in pro ball, we'd play Halo. We would hook up Halo in between. We'd be staying at a motel and we'd have like a cord going from one room to another room and play 4-on-4. That's what you did. But when we weren't together, I didn't go around playing Halo. I could care less. So most of my games were probably more for multiplayer games. I'm not sure why I chose Zelda over the WW. Probably because I didn't have it. I did have Zelda. It was a gift. And I did play it. I didn't have the wrestling game, so I kind of was like, if I didn't have it, I probably don't appreciate it as much. That's a long-winded answer, but I encouraged everyone else, like, make your own bracket. You're allowed to do that.
I think maybe my favorite bracket on here is you made a bracket of best Chumbawamba songs, and every single seed.
What's your favorite?
Every single seed he lists as tub thumping over and over. And there's literally a comment that says, "You forgot about Amnesia, which is understandable. You simply didn't remember." That's a quality comment. Right there.
Yeah, I don't do anything serious on the social media. And the reason is because I actually love the comments. I get a kick out of it. My wife just is like, "What is wrong with you?" But I'll tweet something and people have these comments, and it's so much fun. I love the interaction. All my messages are open on social media. I had a kid that I met at a hockey game the other day, like a minor league hockey game, the Milwaukee Admirals. They're actually the minor league team of the Predators, where I live in Nashville. So
great uniform.
Kind of strange.
Too.
Yeah. And I met this kid. He's a high school pitcher. And anyway, I said, "Hey, message me." All my messages are open on social media. My wife says I can't give out my phone number anymore, so I stopped doing that. So anyway, these people message me and they're just like, "Hey, here's what I'm going through as a baseball player." Or one time I showed a kid in Puerto Rico how to throw my sidearm curveball, which is very strange and hard to throw. I've talked with guys that are in pro ball, over a Zoom call on like how to deal with being in pro ball. And I feel like that's what social media is for. I love the engagement, and as soon as someone's being mean or toxic, it's like you're missing the whole point, and you're missing on a chance to be part of something special. So I enjoy social media. I think it can be pretty awful. I wouldn't tell anyone to go get it. But I don't put anything out there that's serious. Everything out there I do is fun. I'm trying to show how fun life can be. Even when things are not great. I mean, as baseball players, if your happiness is tied to how you're doing and how you're performing, then you are a miserable human being, because baseball is pretty much all it is failure. So how do you cope? And life's hard. So are you just always going to be negative? No, try to look for the positive in it. So that's kind of how I roll. So that's my social media.
As the great Chumbawamba would say, you get knocked down, but you get up again. There you
right?
go. Number 1 seed, number 2
wisdom.
seed, and the number 16 seed all across it. So, Tim, this has been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'll give you the platform here. You did talk about the social media, where else you can be found, and some of the travels you have going up forwards. I know you do some road trip blogs as well. That you want to share that with the listeners.
Yeah. Go to @DimTillard on pretty much any platform. I started posting old videos on TikTok. and got like 400 followers on there. I don't fully know what TikTok is. I don't really look at anything on Instagram. I basically just look at Twitter. But I post every time a social media site comes up. I get the handle @Dillard, because when I first got Twitter, I typed in Tim Dillard and there were like 25 different Tim Dillards. So I immediately did not feel special at all. But John Axford, one of my teammates, closer of the Brewers, he's
Another
Canuckian.
great mustache.
Yeah. One of the funniest teammates I've ever had. He always called me Dim Tillard. He always would switch around people's letters in their names if it worked. And he called me Dim Tillard all the time. He'd be like, Dimothy, what do you think about this? You know? And so when I couldn't find a Tim Dillard Twitter handle, I went to Dim Tillard, and it kind of just became a thing from there. But yeah, I'm pretty relatable. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on a lot of airplanes and buses and that kind of stuff. So I have a chance to check messages. Because sometimes people have questions, whether it's about baseball or whether it's about Star Wars trivia or discontinued food. I don't care. Music, like whatever. There was a guy that his daughter, their class, I think it's a 4th grade class at some school, was doing a postcard. They were trying to do a postcard project where they people send them postcards from all over the country, maybe even all over the world. And learn about that kind of stuff. So the last road trip we were on, we went, or I don't know if it was the last, but San Francisco, Chicago, and St. Louis. I found postcards, which I will be honest, it's hard to find postcards nowadays. And I sent them to this class at the address he gave. I didn't know if they got them. He hit me up today and was like, hey, they've been getting all these postcards. They say thank you and all. I'm telling you, it's about people in life. It's not about yourself. If everything that you're doing is geared towards yourself, it is not going to go well. It's about other people. Social media is a way to learn about other people, hear about their stories, and maybe have a chance to meet them or maybe do something nice for them. That's kind of my goal. And so I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I need to send you a postcard. Let me know.
So again, we appreciate you so much for coming on, taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on here and have a conversation with us. This was phenomenal, and we look forward to having you on in the future if you're willing to.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have a podcast. I haven't posted an episode in like a month, but it's called Buses, Benches, and Baseball. And I go get a bunch of guys that you've probably never heard of that played minor league baseball. And all we do is reminisce and talk about minor league baseball. So if that's your jam, go check it out. Awesome. Buses, Benches, and Baseball.
So we'll be back in 1 second with the wrap up of the show. All right, as we wrap up this episode from having our great conversation with Tim Dillard, again, former MLB pitcher and Brewers broadcaster. What else can you say, man? Another great guest for episode 83, and we continue to move on with, honestly, one of the better conversations. I feel like we say that all the time, but this was one of the ones I'm going to remember fondly.
Yeah, I loved that. That was a great time, great hour spent or hour plus there. Really cool perspective on baseball, but also kind of just life in general and social media. I thought that was an interesting part of the conversation that I didn't necessarily expect. We also talked about Chumbawamba, which definitely didn't expect that. But really cool. He's a great follow wherever you want to follow him. A good dude. And the Brewers, man, what I come away with that, we had a lot of Brewers talk mixed in there. I think after speaking to someone who is closer to the product, I would say the Brewers are just kind of one of those teams that we really don't know what they are yet. And because they're the Brewers and we've seen them for years, even though they've let a lot of people walk out the door, which we've talked about before, don't count them out yet because they have a way of kind of clawing their way back and willing themselves to victory. But maybe the most interesting part is even Tim admitting that we don't know who or if anyone has filled that void that Willy Adames has left, not only offensively, but also in the clubhouse.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think as the season rolls on, the Brewers have shown us year after year that they are a team that has a lot of resilience and they have depth for next man up. So we will definitely see them at the very least in the National League Central conversation if the Cubs don't pull away sometime in August or July. But again, if you guys want to support the show, you can follow us at Tablesetters Pod on both X and on Instagram. Leave a 5-star review if you could do that. We gave you almost, I would say, do the math right here, almost 3 hours, 5 hours. What is the math on that for what we did yesterday? How long did we go?
Yeah, yesterday was like
the
an
last
hour
2 days,
50.
man. We've been carrying you guys across the finish line with some great baseball content. That's what we do over here. Not always are we going to drop back-to-back days of episodes, but here we are doing it. And when Tim Dillard says he's going to come on, we make the time and make it happen for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love it. Having a guest episode and a regular kind of around the league episode is fun to do. We try to get it going as much as possible. So super happy we were able to work that out back-to-back days here.
So we're 2 days removed from the Subway Series taking hold here. The Knicks took a loss and they're going back to New York, up 3-2 in the series. So the next time we join you, we'll have clarity on really both the Subway Series and what happens with the Knicks and the Boston Celtics. Are we looking at the first Eastern Conference Finals for the New York Knicks since the year 2000? 25 years have gone by, and we felt every inch of that as New York fans over here. We need them to have the success. But we will certainly see, and all eyes go towards the Bronx and the Subway Series. Juan Soto, what type of reception will he get? And we'll be having conversations again at Tablesetters Pod. Devin posted some clips of this reel of the conversation we have with Tim Dillard, and we will be back next week talking all things baseball, potentially with another guest coming up because we have a lot of those in the pipeline. But we will talk to you after a while.
In a year that has been